Good evening. Welcome to the League of Women Voters special presentation on the City Council candidates here in Camarillo. I'm David Marin, a member of the League of Women Voters. I'll be the moderator. We are delighted to have the Camarillo Chamber of Commerce join us tonight as a co-sponsor. We're grateful for their support. Tonight, the way this program will work is we'll hear a nice little welcome from our League President, Betsy Patterson. After that, we'll have opening statements from each candidate, followed by responses to some of the questions that many of you submitted on the registration website, and then we'll have closing statements. The candidates and you should be able to see a timer on part of the screen. Each candidate will have 1.5 minutes. With that, I'd like to introduce the President of the League of Women Voters of Ventura County, Betsy Patterson.
Good evening. I'm Betsy Patterson, the current President of the League of Women Voters of Ventura County. 100 years ago, the 19th Amendment was ratified, giving women across the nation the right to vote. We hold the right to vote precious, since not all people were given that right in the original Constitution. And for 100 years, the League of Women Voters has been dedicated to encouraging civic engagement and informing voters about candidates and issues. From its beginning, and continuing today, it has been a nonpartisan political organization which does not support or oppose any candidate or political party. Each of us has a voice in our government if we use our vote. To be informed voters, we must ask questions of the candidates and understand the pros and cons for each ballot proposition before we cast our vote. Thank you for joining us tonight, and we hope you have many questions answered by the candidates.
Thank you very much, Betsy. At this point, we're going to go ahead and start with our opening statements. We randomly drew numbers earlier, and Carlton Huss will be our first speaker. At the end of the evening, we'll reverse the order, and Carlton will be the last one. With that, Carlton, you have 1.5 minutes. Please begin when you're ready.
Thank you, David. So yes, my name is Carlton Huss, and I will be running for City Council member for the 3rd District in Camarillo. This is my home neighborhood and has been for 13 years. My wife actually grew up in this neighborhood. She currently teaches in the neighborhood as well, and I have made my business in Old Town Camarillo. And we feel specifically connected to this town, and after seeing some changes around here, we decided it's really time to get involved. And my expertise is in management of large business and most recently small business. Previous endeavors have been in the billions of dollars, and my current business is employing myself and my entire family. So we feel specifically connected here. Where'd our timer go? I also wanted to support all of our local community organizations, but I just don't have the time to be at every single one. So I thought no better way to get out to all of them simultaneously. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlton. Our next speaker is Kevin Kildee. And to the audience, I'd remind you, we have 2 sets of candidates tonight, those running in District 3 and those running in District 4. You can see next to the candidate's name on your screen the particular district they are in. With that, Kevin, introduce you for your 1.5 minute opening statement.
Thank you, David. I'm Kevin Kildee. I'm running for a council member for the 3rd District because I care and am passionate about the city of Camarillo. I am the owner and operator of a family-owned business in Camarillo for over 60 years. My father, Bob Kildee, started a clothing store on Glen Drive in 1954. We are the longest standing member of the Camarillo Chamber of Commerce. I'm married to Janet. I have 2 daughters, Miranda and Madeline. I have lived and worked here my whole life and have a vested interest in our city's future. I have a cross-section of support and am humbled to have the endorsement of both the Ventura County Deputy Sheriff's Association and the Ventura County Professional Firefighters Association. During my tenure as council member and past mayor, we have expanded and attracted new businesses. We've worked towards implementing a new business plan. We funded the cath lab for our new hospital, supported funding for our roads and infrastructure, and we have a new state-of-the-art water desalter to be coming online. We also implemented Engage Camarillo to open our lines of communications for our residents. We also, while balancing our budget, while usually we have a surplus, we have a well-run city. I have the experience, knowledge, and commitment to take care of take Camarillo to the next level.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Tony Tremblay.
Thank you, David. I'm Tony Tremblay. I'm running for a second and final term on the Camarillo City Council. I'm privileged to lead the city during this year during the COVID-19 pandemic and recent discussions on racial equality and policing. I received my undergraduate education at Trinity College, Dublin, Ireland, and the University of California at Davis, and I graduated from the UC Davis Law School in 1983. My principal areas of law practice are in environmental and general counsel work for local government agencies. The city of Camarillo is a local government entity too, so it's very familiar territory for me with 37 years of professional legal experience. I try to bring independent, balanced, and unifying leadership to the city council, which is a nonpartisan office. I'm proud of my accomplishments during my first term, including increasing the city's outreach efforts to residents, a renewed city focus on economic development, and proposing and authoring in 2018 a successful term limits measure for council members. If I'm reelected, I want to focus on new city infrastructure projects, including water storage and energy storage for environmental sustainability. Secondly, economic development, both post-pandemic recovery and implementation of the city's economic plan. I'm proud to be endorsed by an entire cross-section of leaders, including retired Sheriff Jeff Dean, the Ventura County Deputy Sheriff's Association, the Ventura County Professional Firefighters Association, Assemblymember Jackie Irwin, and Supervisor Kelly Long. I look forward to discussing city issues further.
Thank you, Tony. Our next candidate is Tiffany Lewis.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tiffany Lewis, and I'm running for Camarillo City Council in District 3. I want to thank the League and the Chamber for hosting this lovely and informative event. I am Camarillo grown. Professionally, I work as a project manager. I'm a wife and a mother of a brilliant 10-year-old girl who happens to be a second-degree red belt in mixed martial arts and doubles as my bodyguard. As an active member of the community, I've mentored children in foster care, have been an advocate for those who suffer from mental illness, and have fought for hardworking people. My professional background consists of over 18 years of leading diverse teams to complete complex projects on budget and on time. As your council member, I will work to stabilize our economy, will prioritize families, seniors, and at-risk community members, and will bring residents and organizations together for common good. I've earned the endorsement of Supervisor Kathy Long, teachers, local officials, and organizations that fight for everyday people. I'm a dedicated member of our community who believes in Camarillo and wants to use my ability to think ahead, strategically plan, and build community to improve our wonderful city, securing a better future for us all. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next candidate is Heather Schmidt.
Good evening. My name is Heather Schmidt. I'm running for Camarillo City Council, District 4. My qualifications are a dual degree in philosophy and political science from Cal Lutheran, and more than 15 years as a community organizer. I started professionally at the Ventura County Working People's Alliance. When I started graduate school though, which I'm still in today, I moved into more of a volunteer organizing position, as well as working as a freelance writer. I've worked recently with the Camarillo Art Center, and I founded the Village at the Park Neighborhood Watch Group. I'm proudly endorsed by the Ventura County Women's Political Council, Southwest Carpenters Council, and a host of other organizations and individuals. My key issues in this race are public health and safety, revitalizing our roads for safety and responsible development, creating a higher quality of life for residents through more holistic planning and environmental sustainability, and diversifying our portfolio of businesses and housing to support all of our residents. At the end of the day, I believe Camarillo needs leadership that is proactive, transparent, and accountable. So thank you for hosting this, and I look forward to the questions.
Thank you. Candidates, we're going to jump around. So I'm going to start with Tiffany on this first question. Tiffany, there is a lack of affordable housing, and it's a major crisis in both the state and in Ventura County. If you're elected, what can the city of Camarillo do, or what do you think it should do to help with the housing crisis? What would be some of your policies you would try to promote?
Yes, affordable housing is a significant issue here in Camarillo. It actually is the root cause of a lot of different challenges that we have, including our traffic issue. One of the things that I certainly would ensure to be mindful of when elected is ensuring that the housing that we are building is indeed affordable housing. We're building affordable housing down on Berry Street, but that's not enough. We need it throughout our city. And we need to partner with other organizations to ensure that that is available to many people in our community.
Thank you. Carlton, same question to you. If you're elected, what are some of the policies you would promote to deal with the affordable housing crisis?
Well, we have a pretty good basis going on with existing projects and redevelopment, specifically in the Berry Street area and in downtown near Ventura Boulevard. But as Tiffany mentioned, traffic can be an issue. So we do want to ensure that those projects are partnered with sufficient parking and street widening efforts that will properly handle the increased number of residents in that density. I think part of the small town charm that we've enjoyed for so long is a lack of said density. So if we can promote, less 5-story condominium developments and perhaps even single family developments, I would be all for that.
Thank you. Same question to you, Tony. What are some of the policies you would promote to solve or to deal with the affordable housing crisis?
Thanks, David. One of the goals in affordable housing that I backed when I first ran for council in 2016, one of the goals there is to decrease the number of vehicles and the number of employees commuting out of town to jobs in order to decrease traffic congestion on Highway 101 and in our town, as well as to make housing more affordable among the whole mix of incomes in our area. So the solution is to continue the dialogue with both nonprofit and for-profit developers, especially as to smart infill development and reuse of properties where existing use is inefficient. But we need to appropriately mitigate density and traffic issues. One specific example has already been given, and that is the Stock Lumber property, which we are very proud of. And that project is a combination between the Area Housing Authority, many mansions, and Habitat for Humanity. But I also, in the past, have spoken about the Camarillo Commons Strategic Plan, which was adopted in 2007 in the heart of the city. And unfortunately, that really didn't go anywhere because of a variety of issues, including both economic, the 2008 economic fallout, and number two, the elimination by the state of California of redevelopment agencies and tax increment financing. So I'm hoping that we could have another discussion about that, because I think that's smart infill and repurposing. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll go to Kevin Kildee from District 3. Your thoughts and policies that you would promote, Kevin, regarding affordable housing.
Well, ever since I've been on the city council, I've been a big advocate for affordable housing. And I'm very proud that if you drive around the city, you would be very hard pressed to be able to see what's the affordable housing and what is not. We sprinkled them in all through the city, which is very unusual for a city of our size to do. We worked very closely with the developer to be able to afford to build on affordable housing. As most of you know, prevailing wage has been a real issue to try to get enough affordable housing to be built in a city. So we worked very closely with the developers to try to find them other ways to finance the affordability. Camarillo and Ventura County is a very expensive place to live, but a balanced community is one of my priorities, and I will keep working to ensure that we have as much affordable housing as we can.
Thank you. And Heather, we'll wrap up this question with you. What are some of the policies you would promote for housing?
Sure. So first off, I think we're mostly all in agreement here that the bigger picture is that to keep people living here, we have to be pairing affordable housing with higher paying jobs. We cannot keep bringing jobs in that are unaffordable for the cost of living in our community. The other part, I think, is that we need to start advocating for our lower income sectors of the Camarillo, as well as our senior population. I think we're at around 1/4 of Camarillo's residents now that are seniors. The idea, though, that seniors living on fixed retirement incomes and Social Security alone are able to afford some of our prices of housing is frankly untrue. So I think that before we start projects, we need to say what is affordable housing really for the different sectors of our community. We need to see what's adequate, and it needs to be close enough to job-rich areas of town, not sprawled to the edge. I also think we need to really look at what the definition is of affordable for the middle class, which makes up the majority of Camarillo.
Thank you. We're going to move on to the next question. Kevin, you'll be first on this one. Kevin, will you as a city council member advocate for policies that address the global climate crisis, like those that were adopted recently by the Ventura County 2040 General Plan? And in that case, I believe it was the establishment of a Climate Emergency Council. So what are the policies that you would deal with to address the global climate crisis?
Well, as we all know, that's a very big issue, and not only affects our city, but our state and our nation in general. We've tried for any new development to be water conscious. We've tried to implement electric power on rooftops there. We've tried to make our employees be able to live in the city so they don't have to commute. We've tried to include more jobs in the city so we can cut down on the traffic on the 101 freeway here. So this is an issue. Solar power is one big giant step forward, but it's also drought resistant plants. It's also protecting our important water resources here as well. So we will continue to work on this issue. It's not going to be solved very easily, but it's vitally important that we keep working towards the goal of having a clean planet.
Thank you. Tony, you're next. Same question as far as what policies you would advocate in dealing with the climate, and what's your view about the general plan's establishment of a Climate Emergency Council?
Thank you, David. I think we should look at some very specific, be supportive of some very specific policies. And the city, I want to give two examples of what the city is doing right now. First of all, the city is in the design stage on a recycled water reservoir for a 1 million gallon storage tank at the city's wastewater reclamation plant that will increase the water supply reliability of the city's reclaimed water distribution system. That will afford drought resiliency. And that's in addition to the new groundwater desalination plant. Secondly, and very importantly, is the subject of solar and standby battery power for city facilities. In February of this year, just before the pandemic hit, the City Council awarded a contract to study the feasibility of using both solar and battery storage backup for a cleaner alternative for standby power at all of the city facilities. And from an environmental sustainability standpoint, I think that's key. That's leading, the city showing an example of leading in that area. And that matter is going to be coming to the City Council for review in a few months. Next, we have 4 separate bike lane projects in the city's current capital improvement program approved by the City Council in June of this year. And we're looking forward to getting those underway, eventually. Thank you.
You're welcome. Carlton, same question to you. Your policies dealing with the climate, your thoughts about a Climate Emergency Council?
Well, at the local level, I think One of the largest things a small municipality can do is encourage its citizens and businesses to take advantage of state and federal programs. I know that there are many programs out there that I've missed out on personally. And I think with a little more guidance, we can take advantage of those monies to install those solar generation and battery storage programs, even in a small business such as my own, and distribute it over many homes and many businesses. That's probably the largest single item we could do. As far as water usage goes, that's been a perennial issue ever since we were all children. We don't have enough water. And again, we need to reach out to the businesses that are using large amounts of water and developers as they put in these new developments. That's where we can save significantly, simply in irrigation and installing all the low flow utilities that we have available to us.
Thank you. Heather, same question to you. Your policies for global climate change and a climate emergency council?
So I am definitely in agreement with the development of a climate emergency council. And I actually think that we should develop our own task force here in the city to address city-specific concerns as they continue to evolve. The more we develop here in Camarillo, the more heat-dense infrastructure we put in. So I think that this is going in the wrong direction and we have to find a better balance. I also think that it is time that we move on with battery charged solar, which will kickstart funding. We can kickstart funding by working with state, federal, and there are a lot of actually philanthropic grant programs that can help pay for it. Also, I think there are just little things that we can be doing. For example, our trash pickup. I know in my district, or at least my area of the district, we are in essence discouraging recycling by only picking up recycle bins every other week. To me, and a lot of the voters I'm speaking to, that is just nonsense. We have to develop responsibly and with the balance of people, infrastructure, and the environment in mind. It's worth noting that moving towards more renewable energies and responsible development actually has been shown to create higher paying jobs anyway. So this is a win-win for us with the climate and our economy.
Thank you. And Tiffany, we'll wrap up with you. What are your policies to deal with climate?
Yeah, so Camarillo is falling behind when it comes to taking care of our planet. And we're falling way behind. We need to be a leader in this avenue. A few years ago, the Clean Power Alliance came to the city of Camarillo advocating for 100% clean energy default. We said no. We chose the minimum, which is 36%. That is completely unacceptable. If we were to choose the 100% clean energy rate, people who didn't want it would only need to opt out. It's a phone call or an email. That would have allowed our lower income individuals and residents to be able to opt in at the same price. It wouldn't have cost them anything else. We need to invest in solar. That is actually twice full because we can create a municipal utility out of it and create a revenue stream for our city. Bike lanes, that's great, but where are our sidewalks in District 3? You walk along Lewis Road and there's at least 3 different areas where there are no sidewalks. People are walking in the ditches. We don't have public transportation. That's going to help our elders, it's going to help people with special needs, and it's going to help lower our carbon footprint. There is a lot that Camarillo needs to do, and our current leadership has not been showing the path.
Thank you. We're going to move on to our next question. And candidates, we'll begin this round with Tony Tremblay. There's a movement in the country, Tony, to defund the police departments. Do you favor defunding the Camarillo Sheriff's Department? If so, what would you do to provide protections? And if you don't, what do you think is the proper role of the police in the Camarillo area?
Thank you, David. I've been very crystal clear in the last 4 council meetings and through the whole discussion on racial equality and policing that I do not support defunding of the Camarillo Police Department in any manner. In fact, I support enhancing the current budget of the Camarillo Police Department. And let me give you a very specific example. Back in 2008, the department lost a couple of positions for civilian report writers who would actually go ahead and be out in the field. They're non-sworn law enforcement personnel. And instead of having field deputies respond to those more minor calls, it allowed a report writer to go out and take those reports and allowed the field deputies to be in the field. One of those positions was restored just a couple of years ago. I'd like to see a second position restored. I am very pleased, both quantitatively and qualitatively, with the level of police services in Camarillo. I do not support taking some portion of the police department's budget and putting it somewhere else in terms of either reimagining or defunding in any way. So I'm very supportive of where our current level of police services are. And again, in fact, I would like to see them enhanced. Public safety is local government's #1 priority, and we should honor that as a city council.
Thank you. Tiffany, same question to you. So there's this movement to defund the police departments around the country. Do you favor defunding the Camarillo Sheriff's Department? And if you do, how would you provide protection to the citizens and businesses?
I agree that public safety is the utmost responsibility of our leadership and of each other, our individual citizens as well. That includes firefighters, first responders, anyone who protects our families. I have a 10-year-old daughter. I absolutely want her to be able to walk down the street safely. I am going to be honest, I don't know if we should change anything about the contract because I haven't seen the contract. Most people on this call right now have not seen the contract. It was instated 40 years ago and has not had a line-by-line review since then, 40 years. So saying that I would defund or change things, that would be irresponsible of me to say. What I do think we need to do is to review it. The Sheriff's Department is doing a great job here in Camarillo. We want to keep our cities safe, absolutely. And actually, the sheriff that did a presentation the other day said he has what he needs right now. I'm going to believe him that he has what he needs. I'm going to believe him when he says that more funding does not necessarily mean safer cities. So to be responsible, I think we really need to review the contract with the subject matter experts who are going to be able to tell us if anything needs to shift.
Thank you. Kevin, what is your position about defunding the police? And if you do favor defunding, how would you protect the community?
I do not favor defunding the police. We have a very close working relationship with the County of Ventura that actually provides our police services to our city. Since it was incorporated in 1964, it's about 45% of our general fund budget. And we have several budget subcommittee hearings and hearings about how we fund the levels of our police. It's done very, very methodically here. We have outstanding commanders in our city. First among equal is our current commander, Eric Tennyson, who comes from a long line of great public servants here. Camarillo is a plum job within the police department here. They were one of the first to actually wear body cameras. They started in 2016. We have a safe city. It's a three-legged stool here. It's public safety, it's finance, and infrastructure. Those are critical. People live here in Camarillo for several reasons, and one of the reasons is because they feel safe here. I'm extremely happy when I see people walking their dogs or going on walks at 10 o'clock at night and feel very safe. That doesn't happen everywhere. So I do not believe in defunding the police. We, again, are very methodical in how we fund the police, and we do negotiate with the police department and with our city council for this important.
I have to stop you there, Kevin. And Heather, let's hear your thoughts about defunding the police and protecting the community.
Sure. First, I want to state emphatically, I do not, nor have I ever supported the idea of defunding the police. It is a ludicrous concept, in particular in our community, because as the other candidates have said, our sheriff's department is above par. What I do support is increasing budgets for the police in areas that they need. This is something I rely on the police and other council members to review and allocate appropriately. Full support of that. I also believe strongly in a community effort at supporting them. This is what the police have asked for. This is what we need to give them by working with the community to enhance their engagement. I think we need to get people enrolled in Citizen Academy. I think the city should be incentivizing residents and businesses to install those Ring cameras. And especially in District 4, I want to develop relationships in every neighborhood to expand Neighborhood Watch. And then if we can circle back on some of our planning and development decisions, you know, statistically, retail and housing near freeway entrances and exits are hotspots for crime. So we need to be considering this view of our development projects going forward, because we see it in the monthly calls for service that this is what is playing into an increase in crime.
Thank you very much. Before we move to the next question, I just want to let our viewers know that I'm sorry, Carlton, I did not get to you. My apologies. We will wrap up this question with Carlton. So Carlton, please share with us your thoughts about defunding the police and protecting the community.
Well, thank you. This is one of the hottest topics, at least in my personal life. We absolutely support our police department and think that the services the Ventura County Sheriff's Department provide to the citizens of Camarillo are one of the greatest luxuries we have here, opposed to surrounding areas. In fact, I'd go so much to say as we need to plan for expanded services. As the city grows, there will no doubt be need for an additional deputy and additional beats. We've already seen a new one added for Springville, and there are many additions to Springville planned for the near future. Also out at Village at the Park, there's new developments going up currently and possibly within the next year or two. So if anything, we'll be looking at expanded budgets. One of the other key points I'm looking at are creative solutions to be more efficient. And as Mayor Tremblay has explained today and at the last city council meeting, there were report writers that used to be part of our fleet of service here in Camarillo. They're non-sworn positions that are more efficient. There's less support involved in that type of job. And I think that would be a great idea to bring those back.
Thank you. And to viewers, let you know that we are not responding to chat that was on by accident for a little bit. Thank you for your chat remarks, but we're not able to pass those along in real time or handle them. But if you have, say, praise you want to send to the league, you can contact our email address. If you have complaints, I'll think of another email to give you later. So we'll go ahead and move on, though, to the next question. There were a great number of questions about the airport candidates, many questions. Some of these deal with the increase of commercial flights. Some of these deal with the concerns about Amazon bringing a distribution center here. Would we start seeing large commercial planes? One of the things I'd like to explain to the audience is that the Camarillo Airport is mostly and almost 100% managed by the County of Ventura. However, the city has a great deal of influence, and one of the questions, or when you respond, you may think about how will you go toe-to-toe with the county if they try to override the city's views. So we are going to begin with Heather. And Heather, the question to you is, what are your views about managing the airport? Should it be allowed to increase traffic, increase the number of commercial planes and the size of those commercial planes? How will you work with the county?
So first, I just want to be clear kind of my position on this. There are a lot of potential consequences of not doing this right. Air pollution, noise pollution, driving out local small businesses that are already at the airport, damaging our crops, and ruining some of our quality of life with things like the noise and the pollution. I believe that the city council needs to act in its own capacity and also to really put pressure on the county to get restrictions in place, not only to keep airplane weight limits down, but to also shorten the runways. This will force limits on the total size of the jets that will be able to come in and out of the airport. I also think we should be looking into instituting curfews unless we want big commercial jets flying in and out of the airport over the community at all hours of the night. And if I can just add, I do believe that we should not be operating on good faith and intentions and relying on someone else, to mainly the airline, the developer of this project, to do the right thing. This is the way that I think that the City Council can really proactively advocate for the health, safety, and quality of life here in Camarillo.
Thank you. Tony, same question to you. What are your positions about the airport as in regards to allowing larger planes and as far as other controls, and also dealing with the county?
Thank you, David. I'm opposed, absolutely opposed to the use of Camarillo Airport for commercial air service. The city, through the council, has on multiple occasions clearly communicated the council's view regarding, for example, the proposed Cloud 9 project and the city's concerns about the Cloud 9 project and the mitigated negative declaration that the County Board of Supervisors adopted relative to that project. There are several facets of operations that the airport that directly impact our residents' quality of life, including noise and operating hours in particular. There is a second issue that's out there as well that we cannot forget about, and that is that the county, just before the pandemic started, the county was about ready to embark in April on a master plan process for the Camarillo Airport. And that master plan process has been put temporarily on hold because of the pandemic, but it is coming. And there should be, I'm hoping that there will be a great deal of interest among Camarillo residents in that master plan process and in participating in that master plan process, because I think we need to unequivocally communicate to the County Board of Supervisors and county staff our concerns about the quality of life issues in connection with that airport. Thank you.
Thank you. Tiffany, same question to you. Your position about the airport and your positions about dealing with the county.
I think we all can agree that we don't want Camarillo to become like LAX or Burbank. That's not why we live here. We're not raising our families here for that. I hope we're all on the same page when it comes to that. One of the concerns that I have about, and some of you may have read this, look it up if you haven't, the 1976 agreement that talks about the weight of planes that we're allowing. It's an agreement between the city and the county about the weight of the planes that are allowed to come in and out of the airport. Something to be mindful of is planes in 1976 weighed a lot more than they did today, that they do today. So there are a significant increased number of airplanes, of airlines that can actually still fly in, even abiding by that 1976 agreement. So that is something I think we need to be very cognizant about as a council and as a city. In regards to going toe-to-toe with the county, it's about talking with them. It's about communicating our needs. It's communicating an agreement between the county and the city, and really standing up and saying our city is not going to take this. We're not going to agree to this, and doing whatever it takes to keep our families safe.
Thank you. And we will go to Kevin for your views on the airport. What will you do to deal with the number of commercial planes that are proposed, and how will you work against the county?
Vehemently opposed to commercial aircraft of any kind at the Camarillo Airport. I've been here long enough to remember 1976, and it was a huge divisive battle at that time in our city, and I suspect it would be today. We have requested, and we will continue to have lines of communication and dialogue with the county. I think the solution is somewhat simple, that you just go by what the 1976 agreement states. And that's what it states. And we can do that. We can be very permissible on the type of general aviation that the Camarillo Airport has right now, but we really need to rally on this, and we need to stop commercial aviation in its tracks in any way, shape, or form at the Camarillo Airport. That was the deal back then. That should be the deal today.
Thank you. And Carlton, we'll wrap up with you on this question. What's your positions about the airport, the proposal for larger planes, and also dealing with the county?
Thank you. There still seems to be a significant demand for the current services that the Camarillo Airport provides. We're seeing this with the current development of the new hangars down at the East End. After speaking with the residents of the neighborhoods directly in the flight path, there is a concern. Like as everyone else has said, there are noise complaints, hours of operation, and of course, the worst case scenario, an actual air crash. A lot of people still remember when that small single engine plane went down into the self-store place right behind the outlet mall. That's still fresh in everyone's mind. The people that live there don't want a larger plane than that coming within feet of their homes. I will echo what Mr. Kildee has said. There is an agreement in place, and one that a lot of people have invested a lot of time, effort, and money into abiding by and building their business around. We can't pull the rug out from someone who has, like I said, invested money into our town. And I think while abiding by that, there's still a lot of opportunities for job growth and economic development inside of that agreement.
Thank you. Kevin, we'll start with you. Candidates, try and take this a little bit higher level. Let's hear about your priorities and what you think makes you qualified and separates you from the other candidates. Kevin, I'll begin with you. If you're elected, what will be the most important issues that you'll be focused on, and what do you think separates you from your opponents?
We need to come out very strongly with this COVID crisis that has affected all of us. The economics is going to be extremely critical, and it's going to take leadership, and it's going to take passion. It's going to take ideas to deal with this here. I will also greatly exacerbate and move the program to provide more local jobs so that people can not only live here, but can work here as well. And that's why we did a very comprehensive economic plan that we will be implementing in the not too distant future. I have the passion. I've been in business my whole life. My wife is a teacher. We have a vested interest here to make sure that Camarillo is the very best place economically that a cross-section of people can live and work here. I'm very proud of my past record to try to include more jobs and more opportunities for a cross-section of the people that reside here.
Thank you. Carlton, your priorities if you're elected, and what separates you from your opponents?
Well, what separates me is I'm not a politician. I'm a businessman, business owner, and a family man with roots in farming. We see a lot of people preparing themselves for this type of job. Starting in early high school, they're taking debate classes and volunteering with the right organizations. And while that may be great in many instances, I feel the real world experience that I bring to the table will help me come up with more common sense solutions than politicized solutions. As far as prioritization on how to lead out of COVID, I'll tell you the number one thing that the government can do for me is get out of the way. We need to allow businesses to recover themselves. Given that opportunity, I'm sure things would bounce back much faster than if we could come up together and find a $3,500 loan for a business that's losing that much every day. So let's just get back to work.
All right, thank you. And Tony, same question to you. If you're elected, what will be some of the priorities that you'll work on, and what separates you from your opponents or opponent?
Thanks, David. Let's take the second question first. I think there are three principal areas of contrast between myself and my opponent, and I believe in positive campaigning, but it's also fair to draw contrasts. The first is occupational experience. I've been practicing law for 37 years, principally in environmental issues such as water law and wastewater law for local government agencies as their general counsel. So I bring that wealth of local government knowledge and direct practical experience to benefit the city as a member of the council. From community experience, there's also a contrast, and that is I have 35 years of leadership experience for local community nonprofit organizations benefiting directly Camarillo residents, the local St. John's Hospitals, Camarillo Hospice, Boy Scouts, the Chamber of Commerce, and Youth Sports. Now let's go to the first question. Two of the things that I specifically would work on during the second term, I've talked about infrastructure and wanting to support that infrastructure in a prior question. The second is from an economic development standpoint, it's twofold. One is coming out of this recovery from COVID-19, which is deadly serious, and doing post-pandemic economic recovery, including continued assistance to both businesses and individuals who have suffered from the pandemic. And then secondly, continued implementation of the city's economic development strategic plan, including an increase in high-wage jobs in engineering, information technology, and life sciences.
Thank you. Tiffany, same question to you. What are the priorities you'll have if you are elected, and what separates you from your opponents?
Sure, thank you. So my three items that I've decided to prioritize are our local economy. Businesses have been leaving Camarillo for years, way before COVID. We need to diversify our revenue streams. 82% of our revenue comes from taxes. That's not acceptable. We need to find other ways. I'll prioritize families in our community. That means advocating for people who have not been able to have their voice listened to, our senior citizens that really are not getting everything that they need to get, our people of color in our community who are being ignored when they're crying out for help. I'll collaborate with organizations that work with and fight for hardworking people. I've worked with businesses, I've worked with lawmakers and other people in our community to try to make things better. What makes me different from everyone? Well, I have a unique skill set. Not only am I a project manager, I get paid to get things from point A to point Z. If I don't do that, I get fired. So I'm not really sure how our city council members have been able to get away with not getting everything done that they should in the past. That would not happen with me. Also, I've experienced a lot of difficulties of my life. Homelessness, I lived in the foster care system. I pulled myself up from my bootstraps, got my master's degree, became more successful because I worked hard, and I'm gonna work hard for our community.
Thank you. And Heather, we'll wrap up with you. What are your priorities if elected? What separates you from your opponent?
Sure. First, I think that pandemic recovery is probably going to be the biggest challenge that the city council faces in the coming years. But before we can talk about the recovery, we have to talk about the pandemic, which is still going on right now. Right now, we need to be setting our businesses up to make it through with more alternative strategies to let them operate under public health guidelines, no matter what those end up being, because we've all learned they're changing sometimes by the day. I think we need to form a volunteer task force to get more community participation on being a part of the solution. We're not seeing that right now. Elected or not, this is something that I'm interested in being a part of. I also believe we need to be advocating for our essential workers, including our healthcare community. You know, our hospital in town right now has nurses that are reporting being asked to reuse their PPE. That is inexcusable. To the recovery, I think we need to recognize that before the pandemic, we were losing jobs. Roughly 8 to 10% job loss over the last decade, to be precise, and that is owing in part to our dependence on the service and retail sector. These are relatively low-paying jobs compared to our cost of living. We need to diversify what businesses we are bringing in. As to my experience, I have over 15 years of working with the public as a community organizer. I have a lot of experience bringing community groups, nonprofits, businesses, and unions that otherwise are unable to work together under the umbrella of public health and safety.
Thank you, Heather. Well, you've all mentioned some variation on business, COVID, and all that, and I want to give you all a chance to dig a little deeper into that issue. Tiffany, we're going to start with you. A couple of points about this. One, I mean, what can the city of Camarillo do to attract higher paying jobs and retain those that are here? What are your thoughts about recovering from COVID-19? And what about fostering innovation, such as startups and those type of incubator-like programs? So your views about recovering from COVID, attracting well-paying jobs, and supporting innovation.
Great, thanks. Yeah, Camarillo is very expensive to do business in. I'm sure Mr. Huss knows the cost of doing business in downtown. And I think all of us know businesses that either have left or have really struggled. So that is the number one thing, or the initial thing that we need to look at, is why is it so expensive to do business in Camarillo? Why are businesses moving from Camarillo to Somas, to Ventura, to Thousand Oaks, to Newberry Park? We need to reevaluate our fee schedule. We need to reevaluate if contracting out the work that we do is the most fiscally responsible thing to do for our businesses. When we're able to bring that business price down, we're going to be able to attract more people. So that's why we have to do this. We have to think of it step A, B, C, and D. Once we make it more affordable, more businesses are going to be able to come. Once more businesses are able to come, that creates more jobs. Once more jobs are created, that creates a better economy. A better economy means better everything. One of the things we need to do is grant some autonomy to our businesses in Old Town. And part of that would be by creating a PBID. Sorry, I almost got the acronym wrong. So PBID basically is an organization where businesses get together, they put some money in, and they actually make improvements on their own and are not reliant on the city.
Thank you. And we'll go to Carlton for your thoughts. Carlton, so what can the city do to attract business, recover from COVID, and foster innovation?
There we go. Sorry, I was muted. One of the largest sectors that we see locally are small manufacturing. These jobs are vital to our community as well as most of the others that are nearby. So we need to ensure that those small employers are supported and that we can get out there and help them find qualified candidates for employment as well as bid on jobs. Because most of these jobs that they're working on are small, short-term things. Many of them thanks to the local naval bases and the Air Weapons Center. Where else can we go? Honestly, I've been too focused on my own business. And everyone up and down my street, I see so many vacancies, so many people leaving. It's really hard when you see these stores that have been closed, especially the salons. My next door neighbor, I spoke with her yesterday. They completely vacated their business that they spent the past 20 years building. And if there were anything I could do for her or the other 15 businesses just like her, find that a solution.
Okay. Thank you, Carlton. Heather, we'll go to you next. So what are your thoughts about how to bring in good paying jobs, how to help the community recover from COVID and support innovation?
Sure. I'm in favor of making it easier, more cost effective, and timely for people to start a business in Camarillo. Permitting and red tape has just gotten completely out of hand. At the same time, I believe we need to be raising our standard of wages in the city, as well as the protection for our workers. For now, we need to be easing our restrictions on businesses across the board until the pandemic is over. It didn't end in May, and it's not ending anytime soon. And we need to do more for the local business economy, all of it, the whole community, to come out of this resilient. For the long term, I believe we need to raise our standard of wage in Camarillo. Every time we bring in business that's going to create jobs, I think we need to be asking ourselves, will anyone that lives here actually be able to afford to work there? I think we can do this by diversifying our portfolio into areas of tech, biopharmaceutical, and long-term and state-funded sustainability infrastructure projects. These are actually the key areas that our residents are commuting outside of town to work in anyway, and it'll allow our community to work more locally, spend less time sitting in traffic, and bring in companies that will turn an investment on our community as a whole.
Thank you. Kevin, your views, or what would be the policies that you would promote if you were elected to help the city recover from COVID, to attract good paying jobs, and to support innovation?
Well, we were somewhat ahead of that. We hired an economic development coordinator, George Winkler, to actually reach out to businesses and ask them what the city can do to help you not only relocate here, but to expand your business. And we have been somewhat successful even this year during the COVID crisis. There is some businesses that are actually doing quite well here in Camarillo. One of them in particular is actually going to add a third shift. We need to continue to let businesses know what help there is for them. With the city, we've implemented $1 million revolving loan and also a grant program in place. And we'll continue to work very closely with businesses. A lot of it is just talking up Camarillo in general, that it's a great place to live and work and start a business, and be real positive about that. So there's several things that we can do. We've had a number of businesses relocate to Camarillo because we had the facility that they needed. A lot of them have outgrown their facilities in our neighboring cities and have come to Camarillo because we do have a business and a building that is big enough for them. So we have to work very closely with the business community and right side exactly what buildings we have so we can soar into the future.
Thank you. Tony, we'll wrap up with you, your views about recovering from COVID and the other questions I said as far as innovation and high-paying jobs.
Right, thanks, David. I think it's kind of a three-part question. So the first thing with respect to COVID-19 recovery, first of all, I'm very proud of the city's response, but we also have more work to do. As a general law city, we follow the directives of the county public health officer and the governor, and we need to continue to do so from a public health standpoint. The city has worked nonstop to support the county on compliance by business with COVID-19 rules, to financial assistance to businesses through what Mr. Kildee mentioned on both business loans and grants, and then financial assistance to individuals and families who have been affected by the pandemic. We also have had temporary outdoor business safety reimbursement program. We thought outside the box and assisted local restaurants and other businesses with that. Secondly, in terms of attracting well-paying jobs, we need to continue twofold. Number one, with our post-pandemic recovery, I proposed at the last meeting that the city staff look at potentially using resources to provide additional facilitation for businesses to obtain SBA small business funding. So again, it's thinking outside the box. And most importantly, we need to continue to aggressively implement our economic development strategic plan. And that calls for targeting very specific business sectors in the life science area, advanced manufacturing, engineering, to attract the high quality jobs that we need and the high paying jobs that we need and the opportunities that we need here in Camarillo.
Thank you. Kevin, we're going to start the next question with you to the audience. Just a reminder, we have two separate districts tonight. We have Carlton Huss, Kevin Kildee, and Tiffany Lewis for District 3. And we have Tony Tremblay and Heather Schmidt in District 4. So Kevin, we'll start with you on this next question. It's a couple of questions that I'm combining. This is really the second time that we've even had district elections. This will be about the process of the city has now moved to district elections. In this particular election, only 2 districts, so about 60% of the city isn't even involved in a vote. There's 2 concerns that come up with districts: is how do candidate or city council members do they still represent the entire city? Or if someone contacts them, do they say, well, you're in a different district, talk to your council member? So what are some of the ideas you have to keep a whole city viewpoint when you're considering issues? And do you think that maybe it would be better if the city went to a full-time mayor, not full-time, excuse me, but a mayor elected at large? So we would have 4 districts and 1 mayor for the entire city. So at least everyone would be voting at one time. So that was a long-winded question. So it's 2 things, Kevin. Do you believe that maybe the city should have an elected at-large mayor? And what are some of the things you can do to still have the whole city viewpoint, even though you technically even though you were elected from a single district?
My feeling is that the best way with my years of service on the city council to the constituents is not to elect a mayor. And I'll tell you why. I think it's very important that every council member gets to have an opportunity to be mayor. It's like nothing else that you can imagine. It opens doors for you. It allows you to meet people that you would never meet. It actually improves and enhances your ability to be an effective council member. And I think not the least of which, it keeps the politics out of the city here. I think it's a much cleaner deal to have the revolving mayorship like we have at this particular point. The second question is, it's very important to remember that even though that we're going to districts, as a council member, you still have to vote on issues citywide here. Very, very critical. We still represent every constituent and person that lives in Camarillo, even if they can't vote for you. It's very, very critical to have a citywide eye on issues here and to be as educated as you can so you can make the right decision when it's presented to you.
Thank you. Tony, you're up next. What's your position about having a mayor elected at large with 4 districts? And what are some of the things you do to keep a whole city viewpoint?
Yeah, thank you, David. I'm not in favor of having an at-large elected mayor. I think potentially that increases the factionalization or potentially factionalizes the council and makes things more difficult. I think I'm privileged to represent the entire city at large, and that's how I was elected in my first term in 2016. This time around, we now are in districts, which frankly I'm skeptical about, but we just happen to be elected by district. From a solution standpoint, what's important is that because there is a potential for factionalization on the council, let's just take an example. Let's say one council member says, hey, the pavement in my area of the city isn't being redone as often as the pavement in your side. In other words, the pavement management is not as robust. And the county has had to deal with that. And one thing that we have done as a council back last fall prior to the pandemic is look at a series of norms and guidelines to adopt so that we would decrease that potential for factionalization. Districts are a whole new thing, and it's very important for people to realize. People now do not have the right to vote for 5 council members every 4 years in 2 elections. Instead, you get to vote for 1 council member every 4 years, and that's a significant effect on voting rights. So we have to do everything that we can to prevent any kind of factionalization. Council members represent the entire city. They're elected by district.
Tony. Thank you. Carlton, let's hear your thoughts about going to a mayor elected at large. And what do you think about or what are the best ways you would have to keep the whole city view?
Well, I too oppose a mayor at large. And as Mayor Tremblay was just stating, I would expect it to cause factionalization. This is a nonpartisan position, and we've seen positions like that bring partisan politics into places they shouldn't be. The city of Camarillo is more of a small mixing pot where we do have different areas that have different needs. While we're all talking about keeping a citywide view. What's best for the city is best for all residents. I do feel that this district-based election is an opportunity to take the needs of the smaller neighborhoods in mind. You know, this is a representative position, and we should be representing the people that elect us first, but the city on an equal footing. So,
Okay,
I think I'll be listening to my neighborhood, you know, just as much as everyone else, but perhaps with a keener ear.
thank you. Heather, let's hear your thoughts about electing a mayor at large, and what do you do even though you are elected by a single district to still hear and represent the city, the whole city in your decisions?
Yeah, so I guess I'm the outlier here. First off, by not having an at-large elected mayor, we are disenfranchising 40 to 60% of the voters every election cycle. So I actually do believe that the mayor should be elected. And I've spoken to over 2,000 voters at this point. Every single one of them that I have spoken to agrees. This is the way other cities do it, even as local as Moore Park. This is the way we should do it. If it is not going to be an elected position, we should be changing even the title to council chair. And here's why. We have all seen in the paper, and this is what everybody's asking about when I'm calling them. Our community has been subject to scandal after scandal involving taxpayer money in recent years. The Fiesta, the district voting lawsuit, the Camarillo Ranch Foundation, this almost $9,000 state of the city address. You have to start looking at some more oversight of government spending and having someone with a higher level of responsibility to take personal accountability. And to the question about districts to the whole city, I actually think that this is the way to do that, to keep the districts accountable to the entire city. It would create more general oversight. We need someone who will answer the questions when things go wrong and be a leader in a time of crisis, and someone who will take responsibility when taxpayer money is involved.
Thank you. Tiffany, we'll wrap up this question with you, your view about how you represent the whole city view and also electing a mayor at large.
Yeah, so I think having districting is a fantastic thing. And here's why. I do think it's quite interesting, the language that some of us are using, saying that it's factionalization of our city council. Well, we're not here to represent the city council. We're here to represent the people. So that language to me doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. What I can tell you is that when I do talk to people who live in District 3, there are a lot of disenfranchised voters here. There are a lot of people here who are like, why don't we have sidewalks? Why don't we get speed bumps? Why are the police not coming and answering our calls? There's a lot of things in District 3 that have gone ignored because a lot of our at-large city council members don't come down here in this area of town, and they're not familiar with the challenges that we're having. So having a specific representation on the city council, looking out for those districts, is a good thing. You know, I'm going to be honest, originally I thought, yeah, we probably don't need an at-large mayor or an elected mayor, but I like what Heather said. I want to look more into that. I think those are really good points, and that's something that we should look into, because yeah, Moore Park does do it. So that's something we definitely should look into.
Okay, thank you. We're going to start this next question. Heather, you'll be up first. I'd like to get your views on two things. What is the way that you would address the Black Lives Matter movement in particular? And also just share your thoughts about inequalities within the system and within the country, and what you think the city's position should be and what you would advocate for.
So I'm glad you asked this, because this is the first question everybody asks when I call. And I guess I just want to be clear. I do believe that Black lives do matter. And to be honest, I don't know any reasonable person that doesn't agree. Black lives do matter, and all lives do matter. And I think that for our community, we need to move to not conflate the notion between, you know, Black people in Camarillo Mattering, and an official organization. I don't believe that we should be endorsing organizations. Let's stick with the concept. Camarillo believes the Black community is important to recognize. Where I think this can go is I believe we need to move it into engaging our community of educators over at CSUCI, our nonprofit sector, and the faith-based community to get the conversation about race relation in our community moving into a healthier space. You know, we have 69,000 residents. We don't know what everyone here is experiencing. But we still can't, we have to stop fighting about the semantics. We have to get past this and so that we can get back to the serious issues facing the city, like the roads and the housing and the jobs. So I think that moving it into the educational sector and social justice sectors of our community will achieve that. That sums it up, really.
Thank you, Heather. We'll move on. Same question to you, Tony, your position about Black Lives Matter movement and what you think the city's position should be, and also your views about racial inequality in general.
Thank you, David. So my opponent supported the original resolution that the council rejected, and she criticized me by offering, because I offered an alternative resolution without those three specific words, Black Lives Matter. She neglected to mention my statement that I provided in that meeting and in prior meetings, which is that there is a difference between that slogan versus endorsement of a movement which advocates for, among other things, defunding the police. So I think my opponent's approach, especially with her insistence that that specific phrasing be used, with its clear inference of defunding the police, was divisive. So what I did is I wrote a separate resolution, an alternative resolution, which was adopted on a 4-to-1 vote by the council. And the resolution doesn't say all lives matter. It doesn't say Black Lives Matter. What it does convey is a very strong anti-racism message. And if people will read the recitals, particularly the 2nd through 5th recitals in the resolution adopted by the council, they will know that. I offered it as an alternative to the council in an attempt to reach consensus on an extremely sensitive and divisive issue. I think we all need to continue to speak with one another. I know, and to engage in community dialogue. We've done that on the city council with last week's session on policing. I know that I'm continuing to do that with faith-based groups, and we need to continue to talk to one another.
Thank you. Tiffany, your position on Black Lives Matter movement, what the city's position should be, and your views on racial inequality and what can be done.
Black Lives Matter, and there is racial inequality here in Camarillo. We have our Black community members who have been telling us that we need to listen. It's absolutely within the city council members' preview to deal with this matter because it's our citizens' well-being. These are families. I understand that there are issues around the national organization, but what we actually need to talk about in the least is our Black community members who are saying that they are suffering, that their children are suffering. If this was veterans in our community, we wouldn't say, well, such and such veterans organization is bad, so we can't endorse this. We wouldn't do something like that. People would be up in arms, and rightly so. So we should not do that in regards to our Black community members saying that they're suffering. Our Black community is calling out to us to be heard, for support, for us to care about them, and we turned our backs on them. This is not who we are. This is not Camarillo values. This is not who we should be. Camarillo cares, and we care about Black lives.
Thank you. And Kevin, we'll go to you next. Your position on the Black Lives Matter movement, what the city's position should be, and on racial inequality.
Well, there's a slogan and there's also a movement. I want to focus on the Tremblay resolution to a certain extent and why I supported that. And I supported it because I thought it was more comprehensive. There's no place in our city for any kind of racial inequality. Everybody that lives in Camarillo should be treated equally here. We've worked very hard through the years to have that happen. If there are communities that feel disenfranchised, and I readily agree that they are, we as council members and a city will take care and start a dialogue and try to alleviate any kind of concerns with that. There's also inequality in our county and in our nation and our, to a certain extent in our city too, about, you know, women and doing the same amount of work as a man and not getting paid an equal wage for that. And that is absolutely wrong. And nobody should ever support that. We'll work very hard. And one of the best things about the Tremblay resolution is that anything that we find out about it, that is wrong and not to be happening, we will deal with that very swiftly and make sure to the best of our ability for that not to happen. Everybody should have same and equal opportunities.
Thank you. Carlton, we'll wrap up with you on this important question. What's your position on the Black Lives Matter movement and racial inequality?
Well, we don't have as many of the problems that we're seeing elsewhere. And I attribute that to the fact that most of us are beyond, you know, racial, you know, segregation and racism in general. When this all first started coming to town, everyone I knew was really puzzled as to why. And you know, this is a mixed group. People that I see every day are of all races, nationalities, and creeds. A very large percentage of immigrants that I work with on a daily basis. So we do appreciate the idea of a strong anti-racism resolution being adopted by the city, but the specific endorsement of Black Lives Matter is not something that Camarillo needs. It is highly politicized. It is, you know, partisan politics in a nutshell. So I did appreciate the alternate resolution, you know, being proposed and adopted.
Thank you. Well, candidates, unfortunately, our time has come up, and to the audience, I apologize we were not able to get more questions in. There were many good ones, and I wish we always have more time. It just doesn't work out that way. So at this point, we're going to go to our closing statements. And then after that, I have a short presentation for everyone. So with the closing statements, we'll do it in the reverse order. Candidates, 1.5 minutes. And we will begin with Carlton Huss. When you're ready, Carlton, you have 1 minute. Oh, yes, I'm correct. You're going to be, no, I did that backwards.
No, I'm last.
I was going to apologize, but I mean, I am apologizing. But my first one tonight doing virtually. So we are going to start with Heather Schmidt, District 4. Heather, you'll have 1.5 minutes. And when you're ready, Heather, please begin with your closing statement.
Sure, I'll be quick. I wanted to start off actually by thanking the League of Women Voters and the Camarillo Chamber of Commerce for hosting this. I think you've touched on a lot of crucial issues affecting our community in this unusual Zoom environment. I would like to reiterate my key issues in this race. First, public health and safety, and that includes the full and expanded support of our police department. Revitalizing our roads for safety and responsible development, creating a higher quality of life for residents through more holistic planning and environmental sustainability, and diversifying our portfolio of business and housing to support all of our residents. I also just wanted to close off by saying, if I could just plug my website, schmidtforcamarillo.com, because like you said, there are a lot of things that we didn't touch on that are important to me, including senior issues. District 4 has Leisure Village and a huge senior population. So I think those are really important things to touch on. With that, I would just thank you again and hope you will consider voting for me on November 3rd.
Thank you, Heather. Our next candidate is Tiffany Lewis from District 3.
Hi, everyone. I will plug my website before I begin. It's lewisforcamarillo.com. I'm not a politician. I'm a regular resident just like you, a resident who's been concerned with our legacy council members' inability to get our projects from point A to point Z in a transparent and timely manner. We have spent too many of these forums covering the same topics because they still haven't been resolved. Camarillo needs change. Voting for more of the same is not going to give us the change that we need. We need leadership that knows how to get the job done. Leadership who's been out in the community working for everyday people, fighting for our families. Leaders who are willing to listen to the issues of our citizens and not dismiss them and say it's not their job. My unique background managing diverse teams, multi-million-dollar projects, and my years of devotion to our community makes me well qualified for this position. And I know that if we work together and we fight together, we'll fight for our community and we'll win. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Our next candidate is Tony Tremblay from District 4.
Thank you, David. To repeat what I said in my opening statement, I'm running for a second and final term on the City Council. I don't intend to run for higher office. As far as I'm concerned, this is public service, plain and simple. I think it's a fair statement that there is a distinct contrast between myself and my opponent, particularly in terms of professional experience, community experience, and policy issues. With respect to what I hope to accomplish if I'm fortunate enough to be re-elected, I have the top 3 goals are to enhance the city's quality of life through new projects, and specifically forward-looking, environmentally beneficial and environmentally sustainable projects, which we spoke about earlier in terms of recycled water storage and energy storage. Secondly, economic development, getting us going through the post-pandemic recovery phase, which is critical, and also implementation of our economic development strategic plan. Thirdly, affordable housing. So we've talked about all those issues, and again, to reiterate, those are the things that I would work on in a second term if I'm lucky enough to receive one. From a public safety standpoint, I'm very happy to have been endorsed by both the Deputy Sheriff's Association and the Professional Firefighters Association, who know my authentic commitment to public safety, by Assemblymember Jackie Irwin, by retired Sheriff Jeff Dean, and by Supervisor Kelly Long, a very broad cross-section. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next candidate is Kevin Kildee from District 3.
Yeah, I'd like to thank the Camarillo Chamber of Commerce and the League of Women Voters for having this candidates forum tonight. I do support public safety and our fire district, and I'm proud to have their endorsements. I do also support and enhance the needs of our senior population, but importantly too, I want to preserve our small town atmosphere and attract new businesses like my father did in the 50s to come to Camarillo, the best city in the county to start a business. We have a reliable tax base, and we have great services that our residents richly deserved. We balance our budget oftentimes with a surplus. That is unheard of in today's environment. I'm very proud to be a part of that. This job is 24/7. I'll always be available to you, the voter. I have the experience, knowledge, energy, and the commitment to take Camarillo to the next level. I am extremely excited about being a participant in this race. Camarillo is a shining star in the county. Its best days are ahead of us. I'm third on the ballot. I respectfully ask for your vote, and check out my website, please. It's www.kildeeforcouncil.com.
Thank you. And our next candidate is Carlton Huss from District 3. One moment, Carlton. We'll get you unmuted and then we'll start.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, please begin.
And I too will plug my website, www.carltonhuss.com. That's Carlton with a K. This is one of the best places to live, raise your family, and start a business. We should be able to attract businesses by virtue of getting their business owners to relocate here. I don't want to go anywhere else. I want this town to stay pretty much the same way it is right now and has been for the past many years. without supporting my competition, they've done a really good job. But it feels like the residents are calling for a change, a change in leadership, and one that I believe I can provide. We have a lot of challenges ahead of us as the true economic fallouts of the COVID pandemic come to light. And it's been my entire career solving problems such as that. Creative, efficient solutions in order to work within our means. Thank you, and thank you to the Chamber and the many attendees who are out here tonight.
Thank you. Well, candidates, I can maybe imagine that there's a big round of applause for all 5 of you. So thank you for running, and we have a special presentation from the League, so don't anybody go anywhere. But I do want to take a moment to thank the Chamber of Commerce for being our co-sponsor. I want to thank our team at the League. There's many people, but especially Ruby, Betsy, Maddie, who've been helping out tonight with the program. This will be available as a video on the same website where you registered, lwvventuracounty.org. Click on candidate forums, and within a couple of days, we will change that register button to be a video button, and anyone can watch this. We do want to hear your feedback, good or bad. Please email the League at info@lwvventuracounty.org. As I mentioned, this is our first forum, and we're going to try something here to give everybody some information. Candidates, please stay put. I'm going to try to share my screen, and we'll see what happens here. Stand by, everybody. And here we go. Right now. So I hope you're all able to watch this. So you have voting options this November. The U.S. Postal Service to return your ballots, ballot drop boxes, both indoors and outdoors. And also you can drop off ballots at a physical voting center or vote in person. Ballots will be mailed out to registered voters around October 2nd. You can see these other items coming along here. If your ballot has not arrived by October 16th, please contact the Elections Division. Very important, the League recommends that you mail your mail-in ballots by October 20th to ensure that they are returned by the Postal Service to the county, or drop them off at a ballot center up until the election. Other information here, and just one important thing, when the election happens, we're not going to know who won on the night of the election. Ballots can still be returned up until, they have to be postmarked by the day of the election, but they can be counted for up to 2 weeks afterwards. So be patient. We'll allow the state and the counties to work out who won all of the races, and we'll follow along. With that, I'd like to thank all of the candidates for participating tonight. It's a great big job to run for council. You give up time from your families. We all appreciate that. At the League of Women Voters, we remind everybody, please vote in this election. As Betsy said, that is the only way to have your voice heard, is by voting. With that, I'm David Marin with the League of Women Voters. Thank you for watching. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.